Welcome to Feeling Asian, a podcast where two Asians talk about their feelings. I'm Youngmi Mayer.
And I'm Brian Park.
And today we're just going to talk about our feelings. We don't have a guest. It's a solo episode. Which our listeners really like. We're always self-conscious about it, but then they do great. So you do like us, I guess.
Back to our OG roots.
Talking about ourselves. And feeling ashamed about it, but pretending that we're not. Fake it till you make it.
Yeah. So, we've had a string of amazing guests on this podcast, but this week, Youngmi and I wanted to kick it old school, back to our roots, and check in and talk about our feelings. So this episode's going to be a little loose, but it's going to be raw, as always.
Raw dog. My favorite.
But before we do so, let's do some Patreon shoutouts, Youngmi.
Yeah, and I'm so sorry for people that are waiting for your shout out. We're really backed up. We're gonna try to like reorganize this so it goes faster. But yeah. Yeah,
we might need to drink some of that deer antler juice that your mom would give you when you were a kid.
Oh my God,
makes you diarrhea.
Hanyak is so intense. My cousin was like sort of short, and they gave her hanyak.
Yeah.
And she literally gained like 50 pounds over the summer. But she's still like 4'11", and she was so mad.
Hanyak literally translates to Korean
Chinese medicine. Oh, yeah.
Chinese medicine. It's just, I feel like all Asian countries have a variation of it where
it works.
It's just in a pouch, and it's a brown liquid that tastes like shit, and it does so magical things.
I'm going to talk about this on the episode, actually. I have a lot of things to say about hanyak. But so after our Patreon shoutouts.
Well, what Youngmi and I are saying is that we need to inject some of that we need to inject some of that Asian antidote potion into our Patreon.
You're like describing it like a white food writer. What is this weird brown liquid that Asians drink? It's stinky. That's how white people talk about Asian food.
I see a great business idea where we can elevate it for the Western palate.
Oh my God. Can we? Like, we invented this thing. It's called.
Oh God.
It needs a really white name.
But if you like the podcast, please support us on Patreon at patreon.com/feelingasian. Read it, you get the gist, but any donation amount gets you a shout out on the podcast where we guess who you are based on your name alone. And we
will get to you eventually. Yeah.
Without further ado, our first shout out for this episode goes out to Daviana San Miguel.
Daviana San Miguel sounds very sexy.
Daviana San Miguel.
I have a feeling that she lives in San Diego. That's my psychic vibe. San Diego vibes. You're too good for San Diego, though.
Whoa, that's very specific. San Diego vibes.
I don't know why. I just got it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think you're spot on.
Right?
I'm gonna add to that. Based in San Diego, but she has a job that makes her travel a lot.
Yeah.
Which she enjoys.
I was seeing that.
And she spends roughly half of the year in the air, but she's the really hot businesswoman who's in those hotel bars, and she's like, I'm Daviana, and she's single, and she gets it a lot.
Yeah.
She's like the hot hotel bar businesswoman.
Business people. Yeah, she's like travels internationally, not like to like Toledo.
Yeah, no.
So
she's in Singapore, and another rich hot businessman is like, so what are you here for business or pleasure? And she's like, I'm Daviana. I'm here for both.
Yes, I think that's spot on.
Well, Daviana, keep doing you. Thank you for donating to the Patreon. Our next shout out goes out to Ana Lisa Evangelista.
Evangelista is such a hot name. Is that supermodel that has that last name?
I was going to say. Ana Lisa Evangelista.
Yeah.
Yes, related. This Ana Lisa's Evangelista, you're a model. You
I have a
can't be
model names,
Like-
model vibes.
I don't. You can't be a customer experience lead with the name Annalisa Evangelista.
No offense to customer leads or whatever that job is. I have a
Right.
feeling.
Oh
that-
no,
yeah.
this is Annalisa Evangelista. That's the type of name where I'm standing in line in front of you at a restaurant and I say, "Hey, how long is it going to be for a table for two?"
Oh
And
God.
they tell me it's going to be 30 minutes, and I'm like, "What the fuck? There's a table right there." And then Annalisa Evangelista is like, "How long is it going to be for a table for two?" And they're like, "Right this way, ma'am." And I'm going to be upset.
Brian gets all mad. Exactly. She definitely gets cut in front of Brian at restaurants for sure.
She cuts the line every time wherever she goes. But I
I'm-
cut you off. What were you going to say?
Oh, I was saying that my vibe is that this person is not Asian, but she is dating an Asian person, which I feel like makes up a percentage of our listeners. That's my, yeah.
Okay.
Right?
And so yes.
Yeah.
She's wow.
Right?
Look at her. Super hot. Also listens to the podcast to better understand her Asian partner.
Who is also an Asian model. And they're traveling the world together.
And then everyone watches their Instagram because they're both super hot and make money traveling.
Yeah. We're jealous.
Fuck. I'm jealous.
I do follow this really
want-
hot Asian model on TikTok, and she's super hot, and she has like this like other hot Asian girlfriend. I wonder if this is them. I'm fantasizing.
Secretly hope. Well, thank you for your donation, Annalisa. And our last shout out goes out to Corey Fetter.
I don't know. I'm getting this is a male Corey, I think. My sister's name is Corey, which I think is kind of
really?
uncommon for women. Yeah, but I feel like this is I'm getting like Limp Bizkit front singer vibes from this person. Do you know what I mean?
Like Fred Durst.
Yeah, Fred Durst vibes. Backwards hat.
Oh. See,
Big time.
Yeah, but you're saying even in contemporary 2021,
Yes.
he is. Oh wow. You see,
Maybe ironically.
I feel like that archetype of person has evolved because being a Fred Durst type Limp Bizkit guy is a
Yeah.
relic of the early 2000s, where I feel like the 2021 version of Limp Bizkit is just a dude who's really into Mumford and Sons and Kings of Leon. Like they've evolved. Like if they were the
I
age
see.
they are today,
Yeah.
but in 2004, they would be wearing baggy jean shorts with a backwards Yankees hat.
Like he
But
was
because
like
we're in
that in high school.
2021,
Yeah.
But because it's 2021, they're wearing skinny jeans with like a wide brim hat.
I like how your reference for 2021 is like 8 years passe. So you're like Mumford and Sons, Kings of Leon. That was like almost 10 years ago that was in, Brian. Skinny jeans. You're like in 2021. This person's living in 2010.
I think that's representative of how uncool I am in 2021. I'm like,
Yeah.
he's hip in 2021. He's wearing American Apparel hoodies.
He's so cool. That's so funny. I feel like the
Because-
Fred Durst look is now high fashion. It's like ironic, like 19-year-olds are dressing like that. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, for sure.
it's so
And they're
old.
all hanging out at like Russian samovar in Midtown.
I don't even know what that reference is, but I'm sure it's 10 years passe.
Oh no, you're gonna get hit in the DMs, and people are gonna tell you that my reference was on
Spot
point.
on. Okay. I don't know
Spot
where
on.
the cool bars are. I don't even know.
I learned about it in a TikTok.
Oh, okay, good.
In any case, Corey, you do you. Keep rocking that red Yankees flat brim and being like Fred Durst, because we need people like you in 2021 and less Mumford and Sons. But yeah, everyone, thank you for supporting the podcast. And once again, you can do so at Patreon. And once again, you can do so on Patreon at patreon.com/feelingasian.
Yeah.
Now that our shoutouts are out of the way, Youngmi, Solo Dolo, us two, OG Roots,
Yeah.
how are you feeling?
Oh God, how am I feeling? I am feeling like I feel like during this time of summer, usually I get in this like sort of floaty summertime sadness depression thing where it feels like life is going nowhere and nothing is happening. Especially August always hits me really hard. I feel like August is like my big depression month. Because
Nice.
it feels like the overripe fruit of the year month, you know, like where it's like your peak end of summer, everything's just overripe, too much drinking, too much
Right.
fun, too much nice weather, suntanned, you're over the beach. You know what I mean?
Too
Like
much getting railed in a sundress.
too much getting railed in a sundress. You know, everything's like rotting on the vine, you know? And then I also get depressed about winter coming and I'm just like, fuck, you know? So those feelings are sort of almost starting. I think I'm still in like peak fun time summer. And things just feel like, I don't know, like there's so many things that are on the horizon that I'm looking forward to, like the live show. And I think we're going to have a bunch of them in the future because they sold out. You know, the first one sold out so fast.
Right.
Yeah, but I think it's just like the time of the year where everything just feels like, oh, like, what is life even, you know?
It's interesting that you are aware of, I guess because it's cyclical for you, that you know what's around the corner. Because usually when
August,
I'm having the most fun and indulging in the most hedonism, it doesn't even, I don't have the foresight to know how I'm going to crash after that. Like when I've taken too much Molly, all I want is more Molly. Not like I'm going to feel like shit tomorrow, you know?
Yeah. No, I feel like because I do suffer from depression that is like very bad. I've like learned to prepare for certain situations, and August seems to be one of those. It's always like one time in the winter it'll happen and one time around August. So hopefully maybe it won't happen, but
our listeners are going to be like, yep, that checks out. This happened in episode 35.
And
52
August.
2 weeks later.
Yeah. And then also like I'm just like maybe this is what I want to talk about. I'm so over social media. I'm so over it, Brian. It's just I'm happy that I feel like I'm in a place where I understand it's not real enough that I can live my life. But it's like every fucking day. Sometimes I post this on like the comments and the DMs that I get are I don't think it's healthy and natural for anybody to have to interact with these many fucking idiots on a daily basis. It's obviously not natural. Like thousands of fucking idiots talking to me, saying mean fucking shit, weird fucking shit. Most of it doesn't make any sense. It's just so unnatural feeling. And I know obviously it's not natural because we're like primates. We're meant to live in groups of 30 and maybe talk to 2 of them a day or whatever. Your brain isn't like capable of processing 1,013-year-olds saying weird fucking shit to you all day long. Do you know what I mean? And it's just like, I'm just like, oh, like I feel like I'm at a place where I can just like turn it off and like walk away. But I'm just like, and then there's a part of me where I'm like, you know, like I developed this like social media presence. It's like this, it's a you know, like I talk about this all the time. It's like a performance and I need to keep it up. You know what I mean? Like that's like, and I'm getting like work from it, which is what's really nuts. Like I'm getting money from this now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's just like, fuck.
No, you're right. I don't think our brains are meant to handle this much noise and chatter and stimulation, and I commend you for it because that is why I don't post on social media very often, is because I know that it has a detriment to my mental health. Like too much of my self-worth becomes tied up to the performance metrics of posts. And this was when I was posting a lot, and I didn't like that. It would like make or break my day if an idea I had, like if it did well or not on social media. But I think you talking about this is topical and relevant, especially today, because as we all know, like Simone Biles pulled out of the Olympics.
Yeah.
Now, she mentioned that she pulled out because of like it was called the twisties, like in gymnastics, like where she felt disoriented, and but then, you know, Naomi Osaka before that pulled out, and I think that, and don't get me, I'm not like making myself out to be a perfect person, because I've been like, when they did pull out, I was a little bit critical, and I was like, why are we celebrating this? Like, it seems odd. Like, I think if you need time, like, that's great. You should take time away. I don't think the criticism is warranted. I think it's fucking terrible. Like, all these people are criticizing them for pulling out to preserve their mental health. But at the same time, I was definitely of the camp of like, I also think it's equally strange to be so celebratory and like, you're amazing for pulling out and like not doing, like, to decide to quit, because I just felt like it's a neutral thing. I think it's great that you're normalizing the discussion around mental health, but you know what, hearing you, like, in this very moment, hearing you vocalize like the challenges that you're experiencing, even as like a profession, like you're a content creator, this is what's happening. It's real. Like, I feel dumb acknowledging this now, but like being a pro athlete today is like 10,000 times harder than it has ever been, because not only do you have to be good at your sport and your athleticism, like this thing, which is like, I am singularly good at this one sport, but on top of that, being known for anything outside of social media, you're immediately thrust into social media world, and you have to deal with a million voices being like, you're such a piece of shit, like, how did you not land that, how did you miss that? And I'm like, fuck. And it's even coming from journalists. See, this is the thing, like, I am a nobody compared to like Simone Biles, but I can't even imagine. There's nothing protecting you from these millions of idiots. And they're 20 years old.
Yeah. There's nothing protecting you when you're a celebrity from millions of idiots throwing in their worthless 2 cents. You're just inundated. I can barely handle this. I can't imagine. And then I also think it's important to point out that Naomi and Simone are both Black women. And we all know that what they're getting is, you know, a bunch of idiots saying stuff about their performance or whatever. But they're also getting endless racist, fucked up, misogynist shit, because I get that endlessly. And like, the level of like what they're seeing as Black women, I can't even fucking imagine the stupid shit that they're hearing. And there's nothing protecting them from that, and they have to see it every day. And I can't imagine what that would do to my mental health. And I think I'm glad you brought this up, because I think those things are related. Like, everyone's like, oh, why are these like pro athletes now like needing mental health days or need to tap out because of mental health? I'm like, because like 50 years ago, we would assume that there were shitty people in the world, but we weren't inundated with the stupid shit that they were saying. Like, Simone has to see that shit all day, every day. And that's like, fucking that would fuck anybody up to see thousands, probably even like hundreds of thousands of shitty, weird, racist messages a day. Who the fuck can even process that? That would fuck anybody up, you know?
100%.
It's so crazy that, and not to sound mean, but like being on social media at this level now, just I can't believe how stupid people are. It's like the shit that make the shit that makes me mad, Brian, isn't even like when people say like offensive, like sexist, racist things to me. I'm like, okay, that's just, you're just offensive. But the shit sometimes people say, I'm like, you are so stupid. Like, you should not be allowed to have access to, like, your information's wrong and you're loud. And I'm just like, I don't have the time to like sit here and educate a bunch of people's like children, but like it's shocking to me how stupid people are. And it's just like, whoa, this is kind of scary. And it's just like, you know what I mean? It's like kind of scary. I don't know. It's not it. And also, but then, it's also then I'm like, who gives a shit if all these people say stupid shit about me? They won't remember any of it. And they don't even actually know who I am, you know? Like at the end of the day, no one,
right.
It's not real. It's just not real. People are so lonely and sad. And now I'm like, why am I interacting with this lonely man? And like, I'm like, I feel bad for him, but like, why am I doing this? You know, like just blocked, right?
Jesus.
It's mental health crisis. We should not have ever invented the internet. I'm sorry. Anyway, so that's all I'm thinking about. And you know, it sounds like it sounds embarrassing and not important, like, oh, the stupid internet, like it sounds really embarrassing, but just think about all the people that we know that have been affected so negatively by this, you know, like we all know like our parents' friends that are obsessed with Facebook and then they get angry at Biden supporters all day and, you know, things like that. Like,
right.
Yeah. It really has like affected so many of us in a negative way. It's like, it is like a crisis, I think. Brian's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I have a life. I like play tennis.
No.
Dating. I'm like, I'm arguing with teenagers on TikTok, Brian.
I'm fighting the teens on our Feeling Asian podcast TikTok. I'm fighting the good fight while you're playing tennis. You fucking bitch.
And then, you know, I'm on TikTok a lot now because it's like just the way to like, I see these like TikTok creators. This is so embarrassing, but you know what? This is my life. I see these like TikTok creators that I like and that are very famous. Like they have, you know, millions of TikTok famous followers, and they all spiral at one point and get taken down. Do you know what I mean? Because there's so, like, it's like Twitter, like the big people on Twitter eventually all get found out and get canceled because they just get so into this like arousal mode where they're saying fucked up shit. Yeah. And I'm like, oh shit, I gotta really step away from this. I can't become a TikTok person. Yeah.
I think you've crossed that line. You are fully a TikTok.
What I have to say is that I will always, what's important, and I feel like if anyone's listening to this and they are using social media a lot, I think it's very important to step away and just have a real life and go out and meet people in real life. You know? Because I feel like a lot of people don't do that, and that's where their reality gets skewed. Yeah.
So if you're on social media too much, go out, meet that guy who says he made a drawing for you and it's a DeviantArt Sonic the Hedgehog sex photo.
Brian, you don't need to tell everybody my business, okay?
Forgot that was a Patreon exclusive.
Yeah. If you want to hear the whole story, check out our Patreon exclusive episodes. You don't need to tell the people on Maine my business. Yeah, my advice to you is go out and touch some grass, as the kids say. How are you feeling, Brian?
Yeah, so a bit different from you. I'm feeling a whole bunch of shit. I'm going to try my best to keep it organized because there's random things that I've been feeling and thinking about since my time in Texas visiting my family. I'm back in New York now, but you know, I'm reflecting on my time there, and feel free to chime in here, Youngmi, because I feel like you have a little bit more experience than me when it comes to life. You're a little bit older than me, but you know, you you have a kid, you were once married, and so first things first is it was really sad when I left Texas because the main reason why I went there was to visit my relative who is suffering from Alzheimer's. And yeah, I cried a lot, and it just makes me really sad thinking about like when we said goodbye to each other. In a way, I have a fear that the next time I see them, they won't be able to recognize me at all anymore. And it was really, really difficult to say goodbye because and they were crying a lot too, and yeah, it just made me it made me really sad. Like I have a hard time even saying it because I don't want it to become true, but I just really hope that they'll be able to still remember me the next time I see them. Yeah. And so there was that, and the other thing that I've been thinking about is living in New York for the past 7 years and then going back home to Texas. Texas is very different. It's a much slower pace of life. The lifestyle is a lot different. Priorities are a bit different. The generalizations, they're true both ways. I think a lot of people come to New York because they're drawn to the energy, the hustle. Like, this is the place to make your dreams happen. People like rubbing shoulders with like other ambitious people. And you come to New York and you're willing to make a certain level of sacrifice in order to make these dreams happen. That's part of what makes it so romantic, is you're like willing to live in this tiny shithole apartment, but you're also hitting the pavement and doing what you want to do, and hopefully you can create this life that you've envisioned in your mind. Yeah. Where in Texas, people do get married very young. And they have, like, when I see other people my age in Texas, they're at such a wildly different, their life could not be more different from the life that I've created for myself here in New York. And part of it is, like, you know, I met this 30-year-old in El Paso. Okay. For the first time there. It was like business related for my family. And we got to know him, and he was like, yeah, like, I have 2 kids. I got married to my wife when I was 20. Wow. But, you know, he seems so happy. And like, for me personally, I know that I want to have a family one day. Yeah. There's no doubt in my mind. Like, I want that for myself. And I've always felt that this concept of growing up or like getting older, I've always felt that it would just sort of happen, like, very organically. Yeah. Like, I just exist, and time passes, and it's all suddenly gonna just come together. You know? Yeah. Like, I'm suddenly going to be a fully fledged adult. And going to back, I don't know, that's like something I've just been thinking about on my last trip, is that maybe I'm misinformed about that concept in general, because I don't know if it's I've gotten older in New York and maybe it's a sprinkle of jadedness, but I feel like in New York, I'm in this in-between age. Like, I'm in this age now where it can go like one of 2 ways. Like, I'm in my I'm in my early 30s, where I think in New York you can live a lifestyle of Arrested Development if you choose to do so. It's like Peter Pan syndrome. Don't they call it that? Right. Yeah. Yeah, and because I see that and maybe this is true at other metropolitan cities in America.
Mm-hmm.
I know not all of our listeners reside in New York, but it isn't uncommon for me to engage with and speak to
Yeah.
a 40-year-old man or like a 45-year-old man who like doesn't have a family and is very single and lives a very bachelor lifestyle in New York.
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
because I have that exposure, it's then in my brain that it isn't
It
that
isn't
it's
weird.
an alternative. It
Yeah,
is an
yeah.
option. It isn't
Yep.
weird.
Yeah.
Where like going to a place like Texas, it is very odd to meet someone who lives that kind of lifestyle. And
yeah.
for someone
like your
like-
lifestyle.
and for someone
it's weird. Yeah. For Texas.
right, and
yeah.
and because I have this this goal in my mind, like I have this goal of wanting to have a family one day, I'm acutely aware now how these markers or these things that I've so like for so long I thought that they just sort of happened, like like these like markers of growing up, like I'm embarrassed to admit this, maybe I'm realizing this so much later than other people, but
Mm-hmm.
they're all like very deliberate choices.
Yeah.
That's how I
Yep.
feel now.
Yeah. Yep.
Like it's like
Mm-hmm.
it's like dating, for instance, you know. I know there's people approach it in many different ways, but I feel like in New York, because there are so many options available to people,
Yeah.
like if you wanted to, you could very easily be single for your entire duration in New York, because
yeah.
there's
Yeah.
just their supply pool is just unlimited.
Unlimited.
Now,
especially for men, because I know so many men in New York that literally get married and have kids in their 50s. Like, that is not uncommon here.
after a certain point, I realized even my dating were like, oh, I have to be conscious, and this is a choice I have to make. Like, if
Mhm.
I'm going to be committed to someone, it's not just going to happen. I have to make a conscious effort to be like, you know what? I'm going to commit myself and invest myself in this relationship. And I'm strangely just now, like after this trip, that's what's left in my mind of like,
Yeah.
that principle applies to even other aspects of life, where it's like, oh, I'm going to make a concerted effort to be quote unquote more of an adult, for lack of a
Yeah.
better word. Like, I'm not going to go out as much because I want to reallocate that time towards this quote unquote more adult thing,
Yeah.
where I kind of just assume that like
It would happen.
happens. I don't know.
Yeah.
Is this,
No, that-
does
that-
this
that-
make sense?
Yes, because I feel like as an adult, you realize that you do feel like you're kind of a passenger and life just happens. Like, you know, even with dating, you're like, I'm going to get married when the one walks into my life, and I'm going to know and I'm going to marry that person. It doesn't occur to you when you're younger that, no, that's a choice. Like, you're going to be with somebody and you're going to get to the point where you're going to choose to marry them or break up with them. You know, like, it's almost like you think that things are just going to happen to you, but you are the driver.
Because we're in a career where it does feel so capricious, and like it goes with the wind, you know.
Yeah,
like we
yeah.
do this comedy thing where like
Yeah.
you kind of just go with the flow, and sometimes like the iron gets hot, and that's when you need to like strike, you
Yeah.
know. Like
Mhm.
there's a momentum to our careers,
Mhm.
but aside from that, there really isn't a singular track in the way there is for other careers, where you're like, I'm going
Yeah.
to work for X amount of years, I'm going to get a
Mhm.
promotion, and this is the
Yeah.
track that I'm on. And my dad would always tell me, in Korean it's called like 때. He would always tell me like 때가 있다고, like
Mhm.
때가 있어, like there is a timing for things. And I would
Mhm.
that would make me so prickly and
Mm.
upset, because it conflicted with my go with the flow mentality that I
Mhm.
had, like living as a creative in New York, and
Yeah.
being like, what are you talking about? Stop imposing this like unnecessary expectation on me. I'm going with the flow. There's no way to predict these things. But I am, yeah, I feel like I'm changing, and those words are resonating with me deeply now, where I'm realizing like maybe there is truth to what my dad has to say. Like, I don't want to be this 40-year-old bachelor living in New York, like living like for people. Some people that's great, you know. We see
so many men
figures
are okay with that
who are
New
like
York.
that.
Yeah.
Right. And but I know personally for me, like, I don't want that.
Yeah.
And it takes like effort is what I'm just now realizing. Like, it's not just going to happen organically.
Yeah.
Like, I know there's a timing. I'm in my 30s. There's a timing for certain things, and I believe there's a timing to act in accordance. Like, there's a timing to act a certain way.
Yeah.
And that's just how I'm feeling. I don't know if it's like putting this weird pressure on myself to be a certain way, but I don't know if it's unhealthy. I think there is.
Also, yeah. Also, I feel like looking at it through the lens of, it's a choice and I'm the driver in my life is actually helpful because let's say there's so many people, I feel like for women it's a little different, like, because if they want children, the biological clock thing says 35, right? And so if you were a woman, like, you're 31, there would be this like stress of, if I want a baby, even if I don't even know if I want one or not, but I have to have one in the next 4 years. Like, that's how so many women my age or like your age think. And that's like this really big pressure on them. And that's the main difference between, I think, people that live in New York that are, you know, like cis-het men and women, because for men, they don't have that pressure. Like, maybe I do want a kid when I'm 50, and a lot of men do that here, right? So, but I think telling yourself that they are choices is actually helpful, because, like, let's say you do actually really want to get married, and you really want to have a kid or whatever, or you really want to have this kind of career. I think it's helpful because then you realize that it's not actually out of your hands. It is in your hands. Like, if that's very important to you, you can make the choices and decisions for those things to happen in your life, right?
You posted this thing on your Instagram story that was related to what's been going on in my head and what I just expressed, where someone like commented on a TikTok you made when saying, like, you shouldn't be posting this much. Like, you should go have a lot, like, go start a family. And
it said you're
like,
old.
You're too old for this. And you said that, excuse me, sir, like, I already did that. Like, I got married young. I have a kid. I'm divorced and now I'm free, which is fucking hilarious. But, like, you know, you there is truth to that though. Like, you had that like version of a life relatively young, you know? And
I got it out of the way.
It's not like a burden, but, you know.
Well, I mean, it is kind of, because the truth is, most people probably, let's say 50% of people don't want to get married and 50% of people don't want children. Whoever, but no matter what, society, there is pressure for people to get married and have children, whether you want to or not. And if you don't, people are going to keep bringing it up. Whatever culture you are, whether you're Asian or not. And so it's almost like we all feel like we have to do that, especially, you know, like women who are like, I have to do it by 35. And to not have that pressure is like very great. It's very nice for me, I have to say. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know what sort of mental state I would be in if I was 36 and I had never been married and I didn't have a child. I think knowing what I know now, I would feel like I should be happy and okay with it. But if I didn't have it, then I would feel like I was letting my family down and like everyone down. Do you know what I mean? Like, I would feel societal pressure. So
to your point, like, yeah, I do hear that myself from my relatives and stuff. They're like, oh, you should get married. When are you going to get married? And again, before that would make me upset because it's imposing this like timeline or this pressure on me. Or now it doesn't really bother me when they say that, because it is in line with what my goals are. Like, I do want to have a family one day, and yeah, you're right. Like, I probably should get married. I would love to get married sooner rather than later, because there are disadvantages that come with getting married late. If you have children late, like when they're college age, like I don't want to be super old because I want to be able to have like certain experiences with them while like I'm still young, you know, relatively. And there was a lot of that happening for me because, and I don't know, maybe I almost in a sense like realized how immature I was. Just like, because I'm so I'm naturally very rebellious against authority. Right. Even though I may not present that way, but if anyone like instructs me to do something or is in a position of power, my natural impulse to be like, fuck you, who are you?
Yeah, me
like,
too. Same. Yeah.
Like who are you to tell me what to do?
Yeah.
And I had a moment like that where you know, my dad, on the day that I had to leave, he's not without his shortcomings. Like when he tries to teach me things or impart certain lessons, he can be quite abrasive about it. Like the language isn't very soft. It's can be somewhat very passive aggressive. Yeah. And I think he can have a tendency to notice like certain shortcomings within himself and then displace it onto my sister and me.
Right. When they see it in you.
It becomes like and like I then will retort or have these arguments of like, why are you getting mad at me? Like you're like, you do this very thing that you're getting mad at me about.
I feel like that's a common thing in parents.
But like again, it is very and I had this like discussion with him where it comes like family is super important in Korean family structures. I can't speak for like all Asian families. I'm going to assume it's very similar where there is like a hierarchy and there are just certain behaviors that you need to do. And so while I was back home, my dad was disappointed in me because he was upset that it was still, he took this as a sign that I still was immature and I had some growing up to do where I should have on my own volition told my dad like, hey, now that I'm home, I should probably go say hello to aunt and say that I'm here. And like, that's like a very like Korean thing, you know, like when you're in town, you have to make a point to at least like pay your respects and be like, hi aunt, I'm in town, I'm saying hello, how have you been? It's just the formality of the entire experience, you know? And you know, he brought up and he was like, think about it, like when your cousins don't say hello to me when they're in town, I have like a bad taste in my mouth, and then it makes me not like them. Now, I know you're rolling your eyes.
I'm sorry. I know Korean dad.
It's so Korean. It's very Korean. And
yeah,
again, I brought up to him, and you know, now that I'm older, I'm able to have these discussions, and a lot of it boils down to differences in like my American mentality and my parents' like Korean mentality. And my dad was like getting upset at me about that. He was like, you should have come to me, like blah blah blah. And I told him, I'm like, okay, I get why you're upset. Yeah. Now, and I said, but isn't that also like, there's two ways of framing this. Like, I don't understand. This was my initial response. My initial response was the American like mentality in me where I was like, I don't understand why in Korean like society and Korean family structures, what is with this like expectation? Maybe
the
like,
nunchi.
Couldn't you just assume that like no one, like your relatives aren't going to say hello to you?
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Then if and when they do, then it's a welcome surprise and it makes you feel good versus I'm going to be mad until they say hello, and then when they say hello, it's not even going to make me that happy because that's the expectation. You should do that. Yeah. And I brought that up to him. Yeah. And my dad was like, I understand, like there's you're American. Like, that's a very American way of seeing things. But my aunt was also with my that my dad said that, and my dad was like, but this is why I feel like Americans, it's too much of that, like too individual.
Yeah.
And he sincerely holds this idea. He's like, if you look at a lot of American people when they get old, they're so lonely. He's like, they die alone. Like their kids don't really look after them. They're just like by themselves. And he's like, I think he's like, what harm does it do though? Because even if there is that expectation and you're begrudgingly you're doing this out of a formality, it's always nice to do that, isn't it?
That's true.
If you look on paper. And I was like, yeah, I guess you're right.
I get what he's saying.
It is a nice thing.
But that's
so I get it.
Yeah. In Korea, there's nunchi, like where you're supposed to do the right thing without anyone telling you, right? That's a big part of culture.
Yes.
Nunchi, like you have to pick up on it without them telling you. And if they tell you, that's rude. But I think the issue with that is it's like you have to constantly, from me growing up in Korea, what that did to me was I was always on edge because I was always like not sure what I was supposed to be doing. And I was always being corrected. Right. And that really fucked with me. And to the point where as an adult, and I see this a lot in my Korean cousins, they're always so unsure and like not confident in their decisions. Because whenever they do something, they don't know if it's right or wrong because they're waiting for the adult to approve or disapprove constantly.
And that's so true because when my dad brought it up, that was my initial reaction. It was like,
how am I supposed to fucking know this shit?
Yeah. Here I'm in trouble for another thing. Like it feels like I'm walking on eggshells.
It's always like that. And so the whole, I feel like that part of society, I feel like there is value in knowing that you're supposed to perform certain things for your elders. But the underside, the bad side of it is that it causes all these people to live in a state of like uncertainty. And I think we all know, like, like I said, my Korean cousins, they're full blown adults and they're always like, so unsure of every decision that they make. They're like always so anxious. And so I think that there is a lot of harm that happens with that way of thinking. Also, another thing is if what your dad is saying is true, I agree. Like, oh, it's nice that children are always looking into making sure their parents are okay when they're older. But another side of that is if you're a parent and that's how you're parenting without ever telling your kids and they have to guess what they're supposed to do, you're basically always being disappointed. Because you're like, read my mind. Oh, but you didn't. So you're constantly in this state of like disappointment and like, oh, you let me down again. And I just feel like, for what reason? You know what I mean? Like you can just tell me, like just tell me what you want from me and then I'll do it. Right?
Right. I think,
but that's not only an Asian thing. A lot of white people, I know like a lot of people that do that. It's just, people that are not Asian. It's just a passive aggressive way of skirting confrontation and then having a reason to be disappointed. I think people like, instead of just saying it directly, like.
Totally.
But I also see his side.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the thing. I think that's just where my mindset is at.
Yeah.
I'm beginning to see and understand more of my parents' side of things than I did before.
Yeah.
And again, it's like to tie it all together, I feel like I'm embracing this idea of, oh, okay, I need to make a concerted effort and a concerted choice to be more of a version of an adult that I want to be. Because it's not just going to happen. Because in a place like New York, you can very easily fall into a state of arrested development.
Look, can I just say one thing, Brian? Can I just say one thing about all the stuff that you said? Because sure. I feel like a lot of New Yorkers have what you are experiencing. Like, I'm getting older, and why didn't I marry somebody when I was 23 and have 2 kids and live in a house and get 2 cars? Like, a lot of New Yorkers, like, sort of think that way. And I think that there's a lot of the grass is always greener happening. Because let's be honest, there's so many people that live in the suburbs. All they want to, their dream was to live in New York and try to become an actor.
To be a DJ.
A DJ. become a stand-up comedian. God forbid. And like that's their dream. That's their dream. And they were too scared to do it. And yeah, maybe we're in our 30s and we're struggling. But like, but if we were married and 28 years old with 3 kids and like fucking Texas, like that's probably what they're like dreaming of your life. Do you know what I mean? Like 31 dating models on Tinder. You know, that's like a regular Wednesday night for Brian Park, you know, like.
Oh, shut up.
And I have to say the kids thing, even because I do have a son, so I do live between 2 worlds. And when I am like in the parents' world, they're so miserable. My God. They're so like there is nobody that is more miserable on planet Earth than like a 45-year-old like Manhattan dad at a fucking playground with his 2 fucking kids. Dude, they look so unhappy. I'm just like, just get a divorce.
While he's like taking a call and getting upset about how the strike number for this bond that they signed off was 2 cents too high.
And I don't
like, I just want to fucking I would just want to be like a grizzly man in the woods.
This is me being gossipy, but I don't hang out with a lot of married couples in New York because they're just so miserable. But they are so fucked up. Like my friend who's a mom, she hangs out with them and she tells me this gossip that these miserable people do to each other. It is next level, bro. They're cheating. They're punching each other's wives. It's like, oh my God. It's like way more chaotic than you ever thought. They're fully sleeping with people's babysitters and bringing them to brunch with all their friends. Like it's a hot mess. You do not want that life. I mean, maybe you do. I don't know.
Oh my God.
But
well, yeah. So I'm glad I was able to verbalize and just kind of get these things out of my brain.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I hope it wasn't too rambly, or hopefully with the listeners, like some of this stuff that I'm talking about is relatable. But on a lighter note, I showed Minari to my parents.
Yeah.
Because they were like, "Oh, put it on." Like we heard it's so good. It's won all these. Bro, their commentary is so savage, Korean.
What did they say?
So funny. They had a lot of commentary. So firstly, they were like, "Oh, that was it." It was so like shishihe. Like shishihe means like it's so bland.
It's so watered down. Like yeah.
They were like, "This is it." I was like, "Yeah, wasn't it amazing?" They were like, "Bro, this is like easy mode immigrant life. What we just saw." They were like, our shit was way harder than whatever the fuck this was. And I was like, oh damn. And then they were like, what? And I was like, it's a slice of life. And they were like, this is a movie?
Yeah.
What's so special about this? This is just this was every immigrant. This was whatever.
Yeah.
But then
those slice of life movies are so shishihe though. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they were like, I was like, wasn't the grandma so good? And because she won an Oscar, and they were like, honestly, she's kind of like a B-list actor in Korea.
Wow.
And this movie really put her into the A-list. And I'm like, God damn, you are so savage.
Man, Koreans really tell it like it is.
They go way too hard, but it did make me laugh how they were like, yo, you don't even know. Like, you think this shit was hard?
Wow.
They're like, our life be like a movie for real.
I know. Sometimes I hear like my mom's stories and I'm like, whoa, what? Real life is harder. They can't even show that shit because white people will not watch it. It's too struggle. It's too hard.
It's too struggle. It's
like,
too much.
No, I can't watch. This is too hard. The leprosy. Did I ever tell you my mom's leprosy story? Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Did I tell you this? I feel like I might have said it on the podcast.
Talked about the podcast.
I'm going to say it again in case anyone didn't hear it. It's my mom when she was a kid. People with leprosy would come to the house because back then they thought there was this rumor that if you ate 3 virgin hearts, you would be cured of leprosy. So people with leprosy would come and try to kill you when you were a child. And my mom
Jesus.
said that they would come to the gate and she'd be like, my mom's in the bathroom, let me get her. And then they would like run away. Tell me.
God.
That
And
can't, no, white people can't watch that movie.
It's right, and it's a white development executive at Paramount Pictures named John who reads it, and he's like, this is a little bit unrealistic and not, can we ground this a little bit more?
Yeah, this is, no one's going to believe this.
I don't know if our viewers will be able to lean into the suspension of disbelief long enough for this plot point.
Let me bring this back. Let me bring this back to me, Brian. Meanwhile, I'm complaining that somebody called me old on TikTok. My mom's like, a person with leprosy tried to eat my heart. And I'm like, somebody said I was old on TikTok.
I know. God, we have strayed so far from the light. Because meanwhile, I'm in my 30s and my parents like, we would really like if you got married one day. Fuck you, mom and dad. Don't impose your pressure on me. I'm living my life in New York. I have my own timeline.
Also, I was going to say that guy that you met in Texas that has like 2 kids and a wife and a house. He's probably the one messaging me through like a fake like a Finsta telling me to kill myself.
I would be so shocked if he was because he is so nice. But
those are always the ones. I'm bored. I'm going to go harass somebody online.
Who knows? Maybe it's all the Christians who do that.
Really, for reals.
Well,
all right.
I think that's it for our time. Yeah. Woo.
That was great.
I think we dove into some shit, but I'm glad I was able to get it off my chest. Listeners, if you made it this far, thank you for listening and supporting the podcast. And we have some exciting guests lined up for you in the coming weeks. So get ready for that. And hopefully we'll be able to see your wonderful faces at the live show.
Yeah, and also we're going to have a few more in the future. If you didn't get tickets to the live show, the live stream tickets are still for sale at caveat.nyc. Brian, where can our listeners find you on social media?
You guys can find me on socials at It's Brian Park.
And mine.
What about you, Youngmi?
Oh, YM Mayor and then Youngmi Mayor on TikTok. And then follow our podcast page on Instagram at Feeling Asian Podcast and TikTok at Feeling Asian Podcast. And don't forget to subscribe to our Patreon, patreon.com/feelingasian.
Bye.
Bye.